started as nothing. One of those small, offbeat details you clock in passing and then try to file away under probably nothing, even though something in your chest goes tight the second you see it. Amanda was in the kitchen, humming a Lumineers song while slicing her blueberry cake, her comfort bake, as she liked to call it. She always made it when she was either anxious or trying to present things as totally fine. This time, she said it was for tomorrow's strategy team breakfast. But the way she moved, distracted and a little too cheerful, already had my nerves flickering. The sun was setting behind her, filling the kitchen with amber light, soft shadows dancing across the countertop. It would have been a beautiful moment if it didn't feel so off. Her bag was sitting wide open on the dining chair, that expensive faux leather tote she got on sale last fall. I walked by it absently on my way to drop my keys on the counter, but the flap had fallen open and something caught my eye. A thick, cream-colored envelope with an embossed logo. I recognized the logo immediately. Delaney and Rose Jewelers. She dragged me past their window once and gushed about their timeless designs. Whatever that meant, I didn't want to pry. I really didn't. But the envelope wasn't sealed, and it was just right there. Inside, nothing. Just air. No receipt, no business card, no ring. I froze for a second, just holding it. Then I saw the corner of a folded sheet sticking out from under her wallet. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I pulled it out. A hotel receipt. Harbor Loft Suites. Boutique. Pricey. Private. Date. Today. Room. 1 King Deluxe. Waterfront view. Guests 2. Check-in time. 12:37 p.m. Checkout. Same day. 5:52 p.m. A midday visit. Booked and done before I even got home from work. My mouth went dry. I heard the soft chime of the dishwasher finishing its cycle and walked over, barely thinking. Opened the door. Steam poured out. Inside, 2 long-stemmed wine glasses. Both had lipstick stains. Amanda wears this very specific deep berry color, almost Berg *NDY. It matched perfectly. Both glasses had that same shade on the rim. I stood there for a second, staring at the glasses like they were going to explain themselves. I didn't know whether I felt sick or numb or just incredibly tired. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice level. "What's the envelope from Delaney's?" She didn't look up, just kept slicing the cake, neat and methodical. "Oh, that," she said, too casual. "That's for the corporate event gift packages. They want to include local luxury brands this year, jewelry, wine, chocolates. You know, client bait." She slid the knife through the last slice and started plating. Her back was still to me. "Is there supposed to be something in it?" I asked. "It's empty." That made her pause. Only a beat, barely noticeable, but I caught it. She turned around slowly, holding the cake plate like it was a shield. "Oh, right. Yeah. It was just a mock-up. The marketing team needed product sh*TS. No actual ring, just the box." She gave a small laugh, forced but trying to seem light. "Honestly, I should have thrown it out, but I figured I'd reuse it for the real shoot next week." I nodded slowly. My eyes drifted toward the dishwasher again. "What about the wine glasses?" I asked. She blinked, followed my gaze. "Oh, those? Yeah, Megan from Brand Partnerships came over this afternoon to review layout options for the event catalog. She brought a bottle of Pinot as a thank you for helping with her pitch deck. We had a glass while we worked." "Megan? Yeah. She wears lipstick?" Amanda blinked again, then smiled like I was being silly. "Yeah, I think so. Sometimes. I didn't really notice." I stepped back from the dishwasher. "And the Harbor Loft Suites receipt?" This time, she tilted her head and gave me a look that I could only describe as rehearsed concern. "Oh no. Wait, that's probably for the vendor coordination meeting. One of the teams booked a space for staging photos. I had to drop off materials earlier. You know how tight everyone's calendar is. It was the only time they could meet." She moved closer, placing the cake slice in front of me like it was a peace offering. "I swear, everything's been such a blur lately. Back-to-back meetings, double-booked events. If I forget to tell you something, It's not because I'm hiding anything, just because I'm running on fumes. I looked down at the cake. Blueberries, soft sponge, perfect edges. She always said baking calmed her nerves, that it gave her a sense of control. Must be stressful, I said. She gave me a grateful smile, clearly relieved that I wasn't pressing harder. You have no idea. And that was it. No confrontation, no outburst. I sat down, took a bite of the cake. It was as good as ever, and nodded like I believed her, like I was okay. But I wasn't, because somewhere between the boutique jewelry envelope, the hotel receipt, and the duplicate lipstick stains, something inside me had shifted. She was calm, too calm. Her tone had been just right, empathetic, slightly flustered, laced with corporate lingo that could paper over any cracks. Vendor coordination, mock-up materials, brand partnerships. It all sounded so plausible, so textbook, like she'd practiced saying it in the mirror. And yet, I couldn't shake the way her eyes never fully met mine. Not once during the entire exchange. After dinner, she said she had to review some project materials and disappeared into the bedroom. Door shut. I could hear the soft click of her phone keyboard. Rapid, nervous taps. The kind she usually made when she was venting to her friends or texting her team in a panic. But something about the rhythm was different. Less urgent. More careful. I sat in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen, and felt the weight of something I couldn't name yet. Maybe I didn't want to. I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, reminding myself that people have complicated work lives, that boutique hotels are sometimes used for photo shoots, that maybe Megan did wear lipstick and bring wine, and that I was just being paranoid. But the truth was, I didn't believe her. Not really. I was just afraid to find out what believing myself might lead to. That night, I barely slept. Amanda had turned in early, saying she had an early Zoom call with a vendor in Europe. Time zone nightmare, she called it. She kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened and shut the bedroom door, locking it as if that was a normal thing between married people. I lay there on the couch, staring at the ceiling, the same three details looping in my head like static on a busted tape. The empty envelope, the lipstick-stained glasses, the hotel receipt. Each on its own could have had a rational explanation. Amanda was good at rational explanations. But together, they didn't feel like data points, they felt like breadcrumbs. And once your mind starts following breadcrumbs, it doesn't stop. It doesn't want to. Lying there, I started replaying the last few weeks, and things that once felt ordinary now glowed under a different light. Details I had shrugged off, moments I'd brushed aside because they seemed too small to matter. There was the Berg *NDY dress. 3 weeks ago. It was hanging from the door of our guest room closet, still draped in a dry cleaner's sheath. Client mixer, she'd said. Agency ++, I have to show face. She wore it out that night, and when she got home, she didn't toss it into the laundry basket like usual. In fact, I never saw it go into the wash at all. I remember checking days later, still hung up, still pristine. Dry cleaned again, or never worn. Couldn't be sure. Then the heels in the back seat of her car. Beige with a broken strap she swore she'd get fixed. I found them twice, just sitting there on the floor mats behind the driver's seat. Even though she said she only brought them out, just in case. A meeting ran late, and she had to ditch the flats. Both times I offered to take them upstairs for her, and both times she smiled and said, "Nah, I'll need them tomorrow anyway." And then there was the phone. That was probably the first thing that ever made my stomach twist, though I didn't clock it until now. Amanda used to leave her phone anywhere, on the kitchen counter, on the bathroom sink while she brushed her teeth, sometimes even in the car overnight like it was no big deal. But lately, she carried it like it was glued to her hand. Always flipped screen down, always on silent. If she left it charging on the side table, it was for 5 minutes max, and she'd jump every time it buzzed, like it was going to explode if I looked at it. Once, during dinner, it lit up just for a second. I didn't see the message, but I caught the preview. A tiny red padlock icon followed by the letter M. M? Who the hell was M? I asked jokingly, "Who's M, James Bond?" Trying to sound casual. She smiled. Tight, like her mouth was resisting it. "Oh," she said. "That's a vendor chat. One of those encrypted apps legal makes us use when talking to offshore freelancers. You'd hate it. No gifs. It was slick. Just the right balance of annoyance and professional jargon. I didn't push back. Not then. But later, when I looked through her notification history, one night while she was asleep, I found multiple pings from the same app. All labeled only M. Always after 10 p.m. Always deleted by morning. Then there was her so-called book club. I don't mean to sound petty, but Amanda hadn't read an actual book in 6 months. I know this because she used to tease me for tracking my reading list like I was training for a marathon. She'd say stuff like, "You gonna put that on Goodreads, nerd?" But then, 2 weeks ago, she suddenly announced that she was joining a book club. Team building thing, she said. HR wants us to do more bonding outside work. It's a romance novel this month. Super cheesy. Okay, fine. People can get back into reading. But every week she'd go out for this book club. Never with a book. Never discussing anything about it. And every time she came back, she smelled like a perfume that wasn't hers. Something deeper, muskier, expensive. I remember hugging her once when she got back. And she stiffened. Said she was sweaty. Didn't want to gross me out. What really started to mess with me, though, was when I checked our shared Google timeline, that little tracking feature that logs where your phone's been throughout the day. We used to laugh about how creepy it was. Big Brother but with better UX, she once joked. But when I looked through it, there were patterns. Regular check-ins at a tiny roadside motel off Highway 6. Not Harbor Loft, that was new. No, this one was rougher. Anonymous. No frills. The kind of place that rents by the hour and doesn't care who you are. I cross-referenced the dates. 4 times in the last month. Always on Thursdays. Always mid-afternoon. I remembered asking her once, half teasing, "You sure you work at the office? You're not secretly moonlighting at a crime syndicate or something?" She laughed, kissed me on the forehead and said, "Babe, if I ever run off to join the mob, I promise you'll be my first call." God, that joke doesn't feel funny anymore. Even her rideshare charges didn't line up. I went through our credit card statements and noticed recurring charges to the same district on the east side. A place she never mentioned visiting. Always at weird hours. One at 7:43 a.m. on a Saturday. Another at 9:16 p.m. on a Wednesday. Once at noon, on the day she told me she was WFH with back-to-back Zooms. I started connecting all these little dots, one by one, and it painted a picture I didn't want to see. The dress, the phone, the book club, the lipstick glasses, the ring envelope, the hotel, the rideshares, all orbiting the same center of gravity. Amanda wasn't where she said she was, and she hadn't been for a while. Even her friends had dropped breadcrumbs. I didn't notice it then, but now it was blindingly obvious. A few weeks ago, we were at a dinner with 2 of her agency buddies, Maya and Clara. Both tipsy, both talking too loud. I was telling a story about accidentally locking myself out of the house, and Maya said, laughing, "Tom, you're too reliable. That's your problem." Amanda laughed, sharp and forced, and immediately pivoted the conversation to something about her boss's dog. At the time, I thought she was just embarrassed. Now I wonder if she was nervous, afraid Maya might say more. And the encrypted chat, that's what haunted me most. The more I thought about M, the more I realized I'd never heard her mention anyone at work whose name started with that letter. Not even casually. No interns, no contractors, no freelancers. I went digging again, pulled up the notification logs on her tablet, which was still connected to her main account. Most of it was normal Slack messages, emails, news alerts. But there were 5 push alerts from the same encrypted app, all titled M, all at night. 2 had timestamps that aligned with when she'd said she was on a Zoom with the London team. 1 matched the day of the Harbor Loft Suites receipt. That one just said, confirmed, 12:30, rear entrance. My stomach dropped. I stared at that screen for what felt like an hour. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't even sad. I was just suspended in something cold and weightless, like floating just beneath the surface of water, unable to breathe but too numb to panic. I put the tablet down, walked into the bathroom, splashed my face. I looked in the mirror, really looked, and realized how much I had stopped trusting myself. For weeks, maybe months, I had accepted every story Amanda gave me without pushing. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. Because the alternative, that the person I loved, the person I trusted, was deliberately lying to me, that was a truth I didn't think I could face. But now I didn't have a choice. This wasn't about paranoia anymore. This was a pattern, a map, and it was leading somewhere I had to go, whether I wanted to or not. When you've been living in a fog of suspicion long enough, you start craving the sting of certainty. Even if it hurts, even if it ends you, anything is better than the half-light of not knowing. That's where I was when I decided to stop speculating and see for myself. Amanda had mentioned, in passing, almost like an afterthought, a presentation party on Thursday evening. Internal but semi-public, she'd said, client adjacent, and partners from the waterfront redevelopment group. She was using so much jargon it was like she was hiding behind it. Normally, she'd ask me to come to these kinds of events, her plus one, the reliable husband in the background. This time she didn't. "It'll be too dry for you," she said with a smile. "Networking snooze fest. I'll be home by 10. I smiled back, but inside I'd already made up my mind. I was going. The invitation she'd left on the kitchen island gave me the address. A riverside loft, one of those converted warehouses with exposed brick and Edison bulbs. I could already picture the scene. Craft cocktails, slick pitches, polite applause. I didn't know what I was expecting to find, but I knew I couldn't just sit home anymore, staring at receipts and lipstick marks. So on Thursday, I left work early, put on a dark jacket, and drove down to the riverfront. Parked a block away. My heart was hammering so hard it made the steering wheel vibrate under my palms. For a second, I almost turned the key, drove away, convinced myself I was being ridiculous. But then I remembered the tablet notification. Confirmed. 12:30, rear entrance. No, I thought. Not tonight. Tonight I stopped guessing. The loft was lit up like a magazine spread when I got there. Floor-to-ceiling windows glowing gold. The sound of a string quartet spilling out into the night air. I walked up the metal stairs to the side door and slipped inside with a group of caterers wheeling trays of canapes. No one even looked at me. I blended in, just another service person in black. From the kitchen area, I had a clear view of the main floor. People stood in clusters, glasses in hand, talking in that low, performative way people talk when they're half-selling, half-networking. I scanned the crowd, my eyes darting from one head to the next. And then I saw her, Amanda, standing near the stage, wearing the Berg *NDY dress. The one from the guest room. The one that had never gone into the wash. She looked radiant. Hair pinned up, the dress hugging her shoulders just right. A subtle glimmer at her ears I didn't recognize. She was holding a champagne flute, laughing with a small group. I'd seen that laugh 1,000 times. But this was different. It wasn't her polite work laugh. It was warmer, looser, real. And then he stepped into frame. Tall, dark hair, charcoal suit tailored like a glove. A man I had never seen before but who moved toward her with the ease of someone who belonged. She tilted her face up at him, her smile softening. He placed a hand on her back, just lightly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. A man named Michael, I would later learn. But in that moment, I only knew him as not me. The MC's voice boomed over the speakers, calling for everyone's attention. Something about thanking partners, about upcoming projects. Amanda stepped forward with Michael, and I realized they were the ones being introduced. Amanda Parker, the MC said, lead strategist for the waterfront account. Applause. And Michael Bennett, a pause. Her fiancé. The word rang in my ears like a dropped dish. Before I could even process it, Amanda leaned in and kissed him. Not a quick peck. Not a polite cheek brush. A real kiss. Not hidden, not ashamed. In front of everyone. The crowd clapped again. Some people hooped, like it was part of the show. Amanda didn't even glance around to see who was watching. She was aiming for effect, making sure everyone saw. Her hand flashed as she moved it to Michael's chest, and that's when I noticed it. A ring. A delicate, Art Deco band with a stone shaped like a tear. From Delaney and Rose Jewelers. From the empty envelope. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the tray I'd been pretending to carry. This was no longer breadcrumbs. This was the entire loaf. I don't know how long I stood there, hidden behind a tower of hors d'oeuvres. Seconds? Minutes? My phone was already in my hand. Reflex. Click, click, click. I took photos. The kiss. The ring. Michael's face. Each *T felt like a nail in the coffin of my marriage. But I couldn't stop. I needed evidence. Not because I still doubted her, but because I needed to see the truth with my own eyes later, to prove to myself I hadn't imagined it. When they pulled apart, Amanda said something into the microphone, her voice carrying over the speakers. "Thank you, everyone. This partnership means so much to us, professionally and personally." She smiled at Michael. "It's a new chapter." I almost laughed out loud. Professionally and personally. A new chapter. She might as well have been reading from a script. I backed out of the kitchen slowly, my body moving on autopilot. Past the waiters, down the metal stairs, out into the cold night air. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't even remember crossing the street. By the time I reached my car, I was gasping like I'd run a marathon. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the glowing windows of the loft. Inside, people were still applauding, toasting, congratulating. Amanda was still up there, smiling with her fiancé, spinning her story like a spider weaving a web. For weeks, I'd been doubting myself, questioning my instincts, wondering if I was losing my mind. And here it was, the answer, unambiguous and public. Not whispered texts or hidden receipts. Not lipstick on glasses. Not book club excuses. A ring. A kiss. A man introduced as her fiancé in front of 100 people. It was like a switch flipped in my head. The fog cleared. The numbness receded. In its place came a cold, steady clarity. Not rage. Not yet. Just clarity. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined the signs. She had been lying. She had built an entire alternate reality and then performed it for an audience, confident I'd never step on stage and see it. She never imagined I'd be in the catering area, watching. I lifted my phone again and scrolled through the photos I'd just taken, each one sharper than the last. The kiss, the ring, the man. Proof. I put the phone down on the passenger seat and just sat there, staring out at the river. The water moved slowly under the bridge lights, black and slick like oil. I thought about all the times Amanda had said she was staying late at the office. All the weekends she'd been helping a friend move. All the nights she'd come home with that perfume on her skin and smiled like nothing was wrong. I thought about the jokes, the sudden phone habits, the trips on the geotimeline. All of it leading to this moment. Finally, I exhaled. A long, shaky breath. No more guessing. No more excuses. Now I knew. When I got home from the loft, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things or punch a wall like you see in movies. I just stood in the hallway for a while with my coat still on and my shoes tracking in city dust, staring into the dim kitchen. Everything quiet except the sound of the fridge humming. That kiss, that ring, that word, fiancé, kept echoing in my skull like a dropped coin spinning in a sink. I didn't go into our bedroom. Couldn't. She'd be home in a few hours, drunk on praise and champagne, probably preparing to spin some lie about how the ring was just for brand engagement or a client gimmick. Amanda was like that. She didn't tell the truth unless you gave her no room to maneuver. But I had reached my limit for false stories. I needed to act. Not emotionally, strategically. So I sat at the dining table, opened my laptop, and began building a case. If Amanda had spent the last several months weaving a double life, then I would spend the next few days unraveling it, thread by thread, publicly, irrevocably, and most of all, quietly. I didn't want shouting matches or Facebook call-outs. I wanted the truth to land where it mattered. The people she worked with, the ones who thought she was polished, professional, exemplary. The ones she had fooled. I started with the photos. The ones from the loft event were clean, clear framing, good light, perfect angles. The kiss, the ring, her hand on Michael's chest, his hand on her waist, the fake engagement smile. I time-stamped everything. Then I added in the receipt from Harbor Loft Suites. I'd taken a photo of it before she noticed I'd even seen it. Attached that, too. Then came the hotel visits logged on her geo-timeline, the repeated check-ins at the roadside motel, always in the same district, same time frames. I cross-referenced them with her email calendar, which, unfortunately for her, was still linked to our shared family account. Events she claimed were Zoom meetings, strategy lunches, book club, all easily disproven by her GPS data. I took **TS. Next came the encrypted chat. I couldn't read the messages, but the pattern was enough. Push notifications with the same contact, M. Multiple nights, always late. I took time-stamped photos of those too, along with the one that said, confirmed, 12:30, rear entrance. It lined up perfectly with the Harbor Loft check-in. I kept going. Receipts for car-sharing apps, always to the same neighborhood. Duplicate lipstick marks on the wine glasses. The unopened novel for her book club, sitting pristine on her nightstand. And the Delaney and Rose jewelry envelope, empty except for the lie she slipped inside it. Piece by piece, I laid it all out in a folder titled, Client Conflict Evidence Internal. Cold, boring, corporate, just the way it needed to be. No dramatics, just a factual report, like I was logging a policy breach or an asset misplacement. A name, a date, an attached file. Repeat. Amanda worked in strategy. She knew how to craft narratives. But the one thing she couldn't spin was raw data. I had more than enough. I created a PDF binder of everything, then composed a message. Simple. No venom. No theatrics. Just clarity. To HR Director, Compliance Officer. Subject. Documentation regarding undisclosed personal professional conflict. Hello. I'm submitting this documentation as it relates to a potential breach of company policy involving Amanda Parker and an individual identified as Michael Bennett, introduced publicly as her fiancé at event name. The attached materials include photos from the presentation event, travel and hotel receipts indicating undisclosed meetings, encrypted chat notifications from a non-work-sanctioned messaging app, location data suggesting misuse of time and resources. I'm aware of the potential consequences of this information but feel it's necessary to surface given the company's stated ethics guidelines. Please confirm receipt. Best, Thomas Eldridge. I didn't CC Amanda. I didn't tell her what I was doing. This wasn't about confrontation. This was about consequences, not for my satisfaction, but because people shouldn't be allowed to wear masks forever. Sooner or later, they have to breathe. The agency's annual awards gala was in 2 days. Amanda had been talking about it nonstop for weeks. High exposure, key execs flying in. Could be huge for my career. She even bought a new pair of heels and had her nails done in some expensive downtown place I didn't recognize the name of. That's when I scheduled the email to send. Day of the gala. 4:45 p.m. 15 minutes before the cocktail hour. Right before the agency's digital monitors would light up with photos, bios, and celebratory hashtags. When HR and compliance teams would be actively monitoring their inboxes. I wanted them to see the truth in real time, not to humiliate her, but to interrupt the story she was trying to sell. Once the email was scheduled, I sat back. The clock read 2:11 a.m. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. In the morning, Amanda breezed into the kitchen like everything was fine. She was humming again, like she had on cake night, when she was pretending not to lie to my face. "Morning," she chirped. "You want coffee?" "Already made some," I said, not looking up from my phone. She poured herself a cup, scrolling on her phone like she hadn't just introduced another man as her fiancé in public. No mention of the event. No explanation for the ring. I waited. Nothing. That silence told me everything. Over the next day and a half, I stayed in the background. Watched her prep her gala outfit, practice a short speech in case she had to say something, and flirt over texts I wasn't meant to see. I didn't interfere. I wanted her to walk into that ballroom with her head high, rehearsed and polished, expecting to be seen. And she was just not in the way she hoped. At exactly 4:45 p.m., the email went out. I watched it send from my drafts folder, then closed my laptop and waited. At 5:02 p.m., Amanda's phone buzzed once, then again, then 3 times. She barely noticed at first, but as the messages kept coming, she paused, read one, and her smile faltered. At 5:11 p.m., she excused herself from the mirror and went into the hallway. At 5:15 p.m., the agency's internal comms lit up. Quiet at first side glances, murmured updates, phones being checked beneath tables. HR reps huddling near the ballroom doors, whispering urgently into earpieces. By 5:27 p.m., Amanda hadn't come back into the room. By 5:41, her name had disappeared from the event's featured guest list. I got a message from a mutual acquaintance at 6:08 p.m. "Dude, what's going on with Amanda and Michael? HR just pulled her from the gala." I didn't reply. Instead, I poured myself a glass of water, opened the window, and breathed in the cold air. I wasn't interested in ruining Amanda's life. That wasn't the point. I didn't even want revenge. I just wanted her mask off, for someone else to finally see what I had seen for months but been too afraid to say aloud. Later that evening, I forwarded a voice recording to HR from a closed dinner party 6 weeks earlier, where Amanda had drunkenly joked about playing both sides to get ahead. "Impressions are just another tool," she had said. "Perception is the game. Tom's steady, but he's background. Michael makes waves." The weight of that sentence hit harder than I expected, even on replay. But I sent it anyway. Let her words stand. By the end of the night, I knew the dominoes had started to fall. There's a strange kind of stillness that follows impact. Not the sound of a crash, but the beat after, when the world realizes something's broken. That's what it felt like, watching the agency's annual gala unravel from the sidelines. Amanda had always called it the crown jewel of Q4, the night when optics meant everything, the glittering ceremony, the back-slapping deals, the glossy smiles staged perfectly under dimmed chandeliers, the place where rising stars were spotted, where reputations were sealed. It was also the exact moment I had chosen to pull the curtain. The email I'd scheduled, with every receipt, photo, and timestamp, hit HR's inbox like a slow-moving grenade. It didn't go off all at once. It unfolded. A ripple. First confusion, then concern, then realization. Quiet murmurs turned into whispered strategy huddles by the exit signs. Managers checked their phones. Department heads started slipping out of the ballroom in 2s and 3s. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody screamed. But the tension in the air, it was thick enough to chew. Amanda had entered the event in full form. I saw the pictures later on social media. Her in a silver blue gown, champagne in one hand, heels polished, face luminous under event lighting. She posed for the agency photographer with a wide smile, standing beside 2 execs and a printed banner that read, "Innovation, Vision, Trust." It would have been laughable if it didn't sting so much. But within an hour, she vanished. I wasn't there in person. I didn't need to be. I had no interest in seeing her squirm or watching the crowd turn. This wasn't about humiliation. It was about exposure. And exposure doesn't need an audience, it just needs light. The real reports started trickling in later that night. First came a call from Jeremy, a quiet guy in operations I'd bonded with over mutual coffee snobbery at a retreat last year. His voicemail was short. "Tom, not sure what happened tonight, but damn, it got real. Just wanted to say, I hope you're okay." Then came a LinkedIn notification. Michael Bennett's profile had been deleted. Not updated. Not made private. Deleted. By midnight, the agency's internal Slack, usually dead silent during off hours, had a cryptic message posted by the chief ethics officer. All employees are reminded of their obligations under the interpersonal conduct and professional integrity policies. If you believe you may be affected or involved in a current review, please contact HR directly. It didn't name names. It didn't have to. Amanda didn't come home that night. Around 3 a.m., she sent me a text. "Staying at Clara's. Need air." Can we talk tomorrow? I didn't reply. Instead, I spent the morning organizing. Cleaning. I boxed up a few things I hadn't touched in months. Found one of Amanda's notebooks and flipped through it. Pages of half-written campaign ideas, doodles, a checklist titled Impression Points. One bullet caught my eye. Tom equals safety net. Don't push too hard. I didn't feel anger anymore, just confirmation. By afternoon, I got an email from an HR contact. Discreet, respectful, emotionless. Thomas, thank you for your documentation. An internal investigation is underway. Due to the nature of the materials, the company has opted to place both individuals on administrative leave pending review. No further action is required from you at this time. That phrase, no further action is required, hit harder than I expected. It was closure or the beginning of it. Later that day, Amanda showed up at the apartment. She didn't knock loudly, just stood at the door, her bag slung over one shoulder, looking like someone who hadn't slept. Her lipstick was faded, her eyes red, still in last night's makeup, though her hair was pulled into a bun like she'd tried to salvage some sense of order. I opened the door without a word, let her in, walked to the kitchen. She followed, unsure. Tom, she said, voice soft, like we were in a hospital hallway. Can we sit? I nodded toward the table. She pulled out the same chair she always used, the one with the tiny crack in the leg she kept saying we'd fix. I stayed standing, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. I wasn't trying to be an asterisk mid-aiding. I just didn't trust myself to sit across from her and not feel everything I'd worked so hard to contain. She didn't start with denial. Maybe because she knew it wouldn't work. Maybe because the evidence had made it impossible. I didn't expect, she started, then stopped. I didn't know you'd be there that night. I raised an eyebrow. You mean when you introduced another man as your fiancé in front of your entire company? She looked down. That wasn't supposed to happen like that. I didn't say anything, just waited. Amanda ran a hand through her hair, sighed. It wasn't about Michael. Not really. I mean, he's real. But this whole thing, the ring, the kiss, the performance, it was staged. Part of it, at least. I blinked. Staged. She nodded slowly, eyes glassy. I wanted to provoke you. That was the idea. Shake you out of whatever shell you've been living in. I thought if you saw something that made you feel like you were losing me, you'd fight for me. I stared at her. So your plan was to fake an engagement to make me jealous. She flinched. It sounds worse when you say it like that. I barked a dry laugh. It is worse. You kissed him. In front of your team. Wore a ring. You called him your fiancé. I thought I could control it, she said. I thought it'd create tension. Spark. Maybe get you to, I don't know, chase me again. Like you used to. I shook my head, stunned. You burned the house down to see if I'd run inside. She opened her mouth to protest, but the words never came. I sat down finally, not out of exhaustion, but because standing any longer felt pointless. Michael, I said. Was he in on this? She hesitated. Not at first. He thought it was real. Then he leaned into it. He liked the idea of being the wild card. Said it made him feel important. And the hotel? The motel visits? The encrypted chats? Amanda closed her eyes. Some were real. Some were rehearsals. Meetings to go over what we'd say if someone asked. It didn't go that far, Tom. I swear. It was about the performance. I stared at her. And the jewelry? Her lips trembled. Rented. I told Delaney's it was for a brand shoot. They gave me a staging piece. I returned it the next day. I sat back, watching her unravel. I wanted your attention, she whispered. I wanted to feel like I mattered again. I thought if I made things urgent, you'd wake up. You could have just told me you were unhappy, I said flatly. She looked shattered. I didn't want to be the cliché wife who says we're drifting. I thought I'd look desperate. I wanted to look interesting. There it was. Not love. Not regret. Just performance. The image she was fighting to curate. The silence stretched between us. Finally, I stood. I think you should go. Amanda stood too, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Tom, I'm not angry, I said. I'm not even surprised. But I can't trust someone who treats relationships like campaigns. I was never the audience, Amanda. I was supposed to be the partner. She looked away. Before she walked out, she placed the ring, the Delaney's prop, on the side table. It sparkled under the light like it still had a role to play. Then the door clicked shut, and I sat in the quiet that followed, not mourning her, but letting the weight of pretending finally fall off my shoulders. Amanda returned a week later, defeated. She admitted everything. The engagement was staged, Michael was a prop, and the affair was meant to trigger jealousy, not replace me. But the plan spiraled. HR launched a formal inquiry. Michael resigned. Her coworkers grew cold. She wanted connection, attention, but all it did was expose her. I told her calmly, trust doesn't survive performance. She left with no fight, no promises, no tears this time. Amanda moved out quietly. We split assets without drama. I focused on routines, workouts, home repairs, deleting shared playlists. I ignored her texts. Months passed. One rainy afternoon, I met Jenna at a bookstore cafe. Someone soft-spoken, present. We talked for hours without trying to impress each other. There were no secrets, no performances. It wasn't a rebound. It was the start of something simple, steady. My story was no longer about Amanda. It was mine again.